Hi, WFMers out there. I'm your host, Irina, and this is WFM Unfiltered, a podcast by WFM, the place where we share the truth about workforce management. So get comfortable and listen closely. Happy Tuesday, everyone, and welcome to WFM Unfiltered. I'm your host, Irina, and I have such an amazing guest for you today. He's so charismatic and so nice. Unfortunately, I cannot pronounce where he's coming from because, Bulgarian here, so don't judge me too harsh. But before we start with very random topics today, we're completely unprepared because this is how we like to do it here in WFM Unfiltered. I would like to introduce you to Charlie. So, Charlie, take us please through your background and tell me how are you doing today?
Cool. Hi. Yeah. Morning, afternoon, evening. Depends when you're watching this. And yeah, I live just for the record. I live in Bournemouth. It's not too hard to pronounce. It's on the south coast in the UK in England. But then, to be fair, I probably couldn't pronounce where you're from. So it's all relative. So yeah, hi. I'm Charlie Adams. I'm director of customer experience and success at Custom Connect. I've recently launched a book. Have to get in there early just to let you know that my book's out. It's just people, the manager's toolkit. Literally like 3 weeks ago, I launched that, which is fantastic. And yeah, and you'll probably get to hear as we talk a bit more and chat that I've got quite an eclectic career. If you go back far enough, I've even got a degree in interior design, which is completely irrelevant to this call or my job, but that's just a bit of my history.
You know what? I would like to reference some previous episode of WFM Unfiltered because I was discussing with a guest of mine. Has your interior design education actually helped you get a job? Like, was it requested anywhere?
It's a great question. Great question. Because yeah, there isn't like a normal path or normal degree or qualifications, at least not a standard one, at least not to become, director of customer experience. It wasn't like when I had my interview with the COO at Custom Connect, he didn't say your interior design degree is really going to come in helpful. It's not really that at all. However, the learnings I've learned through university, the hardships you go through, the lessons it teaches you, and certainly the jobs I had while I was at university, they teach you you have to really work hard doing 10-hour shifts and working in catering, etc. They really taught me something. However, my book, I don't want to really bring it straight back to the book already, but my book actually references a methodology called KISS, which stands for Keep It Simple, Stupid. And the idea is, and I remember learning, I think in my second year at university studying design, they teach you this to make sure that when you're designing things, you don't overcomplicate it. You keep it simple. You've got to think about the end user, whether that's someone walking into a building or whether you're designing software or designing customer experience journeys. Whatever it is, you've got to keep it simple, stupid. You've got to aim for like the smallest denominator of the person that's going to be looking at this and using it. Because you know what it's like. You could design the best journey or come up with the best idea or best solution and framework about how you want to launch something in a contact center. But then when the users see it, they use it incorrectly or they'll do something wrong on it and they completely blow up in your face. And so I reference it at the start of the book and throughout the book. It's just keep it simple, stupid.
That's so interesting. And you know what? I'll give you that because I'm kind of against, especially in our industry in workforce management and in contact centers in general, I'm kind of against it when a job is advertised and a person with tons of experience is going to be disqualified just because they don't have education, like let's say a master or bachelor degree in something. I do think that having a diploma of something is kind of put you through that kind of consistency of learning and putting the work in, but so is working experience. So that's the only thing I continuously want to tell to recruiters, okay, don't disqualify experience because of theory. So that's one thing that I'm very passionate about, but I like your methodology. And please tell me what in your current job, how does that work? Because I have one sneaky question coming up your way around the KISS methodology.
Okay. So yeah, no, it does. you're right to nudge me in this direction, because it does help me, because well, one, because I work in customer experience, I do have to consider designing customer journeys. I have to actually, in CX, you have to consider everything from designing user interfaces and how people are going to use things. I'm designing websites. When I was at Castles Technology prior, a few years ago, I had to design and revamp our website twice, because the customers were using the website for self-service. So of course I had to get involved in that. I had to understand how the customers were going to use it, and definitely had to keep the design principles I've learned in mind when doing that. And it has been a great experience, because what it does is it's led me to this stage where I'm now actually find myself, even though I'm not a tech expert at all, I find myself designing AI tools. So
Oh,
I know it's mad. I haven't trained in tech. I don't have a qualification in tech. I haven't ever done a workshop about how to do tech. But like you, I'm a user.
mhm.
I use technology like you use technology. So therefore, there's no reason why I can't decide or understand what's good and what's bad, what works, what doesn't work. And I just follow the same principle about when you're coming up with a concept, then you're working through the ideas, then you're understanding a roadmap, so a plan and a strategy for writing down all the things you have to do and creating a timeline. And so in a very short space of time, to cut a very long story short, a few months ago, we came up with this idea that what we wanted for Custom Connect, a way of uniting our quality teams and a way of uniting the team managers, so we could look at quality, we could unite them in coaching, and hopefully gain loads of insights. Because again, something pretty maybe come to talk about in a minute, because I don't want to waffle too much. But the thing that people miss sometimes about a contact center is that it's just this gold mine of data and insights. So you have to understand how to mine the data and the value it can bring. So once we create the concept, or rather, we started off creating the problem that we had, that we needed to fill, in terms of needing to connect people and needing to get better insights from our quality and assurance. We actually realized what we needed was a solution that could do speech analytics, that can transcribe 100% of our calls, that can give us all the data and insights that we need, as well as all the coaching methodology that we needed to align our coaches and team leaders. Because how do you get team leaders over in Suriname to then coach and train and follow the same methodology as team leaders down in South Africa or across the Netherlands, at any of our sites we have? It's just really hard to coordinate. And myself, as director of customer, I'm like, how am I going to do this? So we actually are now in the process of creating and developing an AI tool, which is bonkers, because I'm not an AI expert. I've learned about it over the years because I've had to. You can't avoid it, but that's kind of where we are.
I mean, I think we live in pretty interesting time where we have so much more opportunity to learn and to try new stuff. And it's great. It's great that you're not stuck in a box being like, okay, I can only do this thing because this is what I have done for the past 5 years. So my natural career progression will be maybe doing that thing, but in a different company. But I want to bring you back to that tip, because it's important for me to understand it from vendor perspective, prospect perspective. And even when we're applying for jobs, I know that once you are in a job and let's say you're a planner or a team lead working with a senior stakeholder, you should explain it very simple for everyone to understand it. Short, simple, and on the point. However, what I have noticed is that for some prospects, the more difficult you explain the tool, like the more data or details you kind of put in the conversation, the more sophisticated they think the tool is. And it might not necessarily be the case, but it's the sales talk. So is that KISS methodology working for the salesy part or not?
Okay, is that a really polite way to say that some people use a lot of smoke and mirrors to try and say something's better than it really is?
A lot of shit. I'm not into the polite wording, but yeah, we can try with it.
Because yeah, I completely agree that you're right. Some tools do try and sell the earth, and behind the scenes, it's just people typing very quickly and trying to patch together spreadsheets to make it all work. And I completely get that. And you're right. That is where sales can get carried away, or not even just the sales team. Everyone get carried away and say, "Hey, we've got this amazing tool, and this is how it works." And not only I'm not even talking about tools externally, even when you just try and pitch it internally and say, hey team, we're going to launch this new tool to help us all. What they don't realize is that there's a team like yourself sitting in the background just working on spreadsheets, trying to piece it all together to make it look nice on the user interface. I can't even remember what question you're asking, but yeah, I completely agree that it is a huge issue. And funny enough, one of the tasks I was doing just before this, I'm trying to get rid of the jargon, because what happens is when you come up with a concept, you start developing and creating a tool, you end up with scope creep. So you end up saying, oh, why doesn't it do this? And let's add this to it. And why can't it do this? And let's make sure it does this. And before you know it, because everyone wants to say, when you're having a leadership meeting, everyone has an idea of something they want to add to this new tool you're creating. So you end up with this long list of all the things that everyone wishes or hopes it will do. And the reality is you have to think about the minimal viable product.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it really about. You have to understand that you take the noise, you make sure that as a leadership team, you bring it back to the simplicity, as you said, which is the MVP. And you say, right, guys, it's great, all these ideas. We'll stick them on the roadmap. We'll do them in the future. If you don't have a strong leadership team, or as the CX leader, or whatever leadership or project role you have, if you don't control it, if you let it get out of hand, if you let the list get out of hand, if you don't get it straight back to the MVP of what you've got to create, then that's when you then go to the sales team or the company and say, hey, we've got this cool product, they'll start talking about the end product. So the product you might have in 5 years' time, or your wish list. What they won't talk about is the MVP, what you're really going to create. So that's in my view. I'm no expert, but my view from working with a lot of sales teams and a lot of design teams and website teams over the years in various companies. Yeah, bring it straight back to the reality.
Okay.
You really can't deliver everything.
No, absolutely not. But tell me, we discussed the contact center specifically being like a gold mine of data. However, very small percentage of that data is being used. Even smaller percentage of that data is being understood by people. So in your opinion, like, what is the tip? Like, what do we do with that data? Do we need it even? Or do we explore it? Like, what's your experience with this?
Do we need it? I guess the answer to that question is pretty different for every company, because I believe at least most of the data is needed. But you're right, it's how you use the data and how you analyze it is important. So, for instance, some SMEs, some smaller companies, especially in the past, before you have machine learning or AI to help go through the data for you, you'd have to invest in having a team of people to sit and look through the data, an insights team. Yeah. But you might not have the money to invest in that insights. So the reality for a company of that size is maybe they don't look at all the data. It might even be the customer service manager's role, who's managing a contact center, to look at the data themselves and get through it all. So yeah, in that instance, yes, it's a gold mine of data, but the magic is knowing what 3 data points to look at. You don't look at every single KPI. You have to look at the KPI that matters. And then that's where it becomes really tricky, because if you ask the client, they'll tell you what KPIs matter to them. If you ask the business, it will tell you what KPIs matter to them. If you speak to your agents, they'll say what KPIs matter to them. If you speak to WFM, they'll give you even more that you have to worry about. For instance, you guys might be rushing around telling everyone to get out of wrap and why are you spending so long in hold? But if that doesn't really matter for the company, it doesn't matter why you even looking at that data or caring about that data. It changes a lot. I think the beauty of it, though, is that you don't need a team these days. You don't even have to invest that much. You can actually just use most tools that people are using at the moment already have some sort of machine learning or AI or insights built into it. So already simple level, you can just crunch the numbers. You can get some of the insights out, and it will just save you time. So as a customer service manager, if it is your job to look at the data, you don't have to spend hours every week. You just spend half an hour Monday morning, crunch the data from last week. It'll tell you the key points you need to remember, and then you carry on with your life. In a huge company like Custom Connect, where we are now, and we've got contact centers around the world, we do obviously have a few more people looking at the insights. We are using AI to crunch the insights and show us the data. Of course we are, we have to. But then, we've got people to then look at what that's telling us to make sure it's actually actionable, because otherwise it's just numbers.
You know what? I want to stop you here, because one thing that I have noticed is ex-colleague of mine used to say that data is never wrong. It's what data you're using. And, we are often in a situation where we need to increase service level, we need to reduce repeat costs, we need to whatever kind of data you're interested in. And then what people start saying is tweaking it. So they just add some stuff from the metrics, edit additional ones, and the data start looking very differently, And if you want to increase your personal performance, again, it's very easy for this to be tweaked in a way where it's more appealing for different people. So do you think with AI, this is going to become a little bit more difficult for people to start faking results? You know what? I'm going to put you on the spot here because, as somebody who has come from a BPO, I know that even for customers, sometimes, if they are unhappy for your results, someone might tell you, oh, what if remove this bit from the data? The stats change. So, isn't that going to be more difficult with AI?
You're spot on. It's a challenge because it's a challenge not only for an individual to want to use the data for their advantage to make sure they look great, and it's a challenge for campaigns. It's a challenge for when you're speaking to clients because you don't necessarily want to show a client the data, and it's a balancing act because on one hand you've got to be open and honest, and you've got to show the data as it is. The other hand, as you said, you can choose how you show the data. Same data, you just choose how you show the data and what bits you want to highlight compared to what bits you don't want to highlight, which is very clever. And I kind of, to answer your question, I guess I hope AI takes away any need to fudge or lie or any need for dishonesty, because whilst it's important that you have to display the data in the right way, you can't just, for instance, the reason we do this as well is there's so much data. If we were just to give it all to every single client or everyone was just to look at their data, it would be pointless. So you have to have some sort of methodology for picking out the highlights and the lowlights and understanding what action needs to be taken, what's gone well, what hasn't gone well, what trends can you see, what do you need to action that will be for long-term success. You need to get all this out of it. So there has to be some sort of methodology. But this is where, as you said, AI might take some of the human element out. But you can't get rid of all the human element because data and facts are important. Of course they are. They have to be important. But nothing takes away from that gut feeling that you have, the experience that you have. It's pointless me talking about the fact that I've got, 20 odd years experience if I'm just going to let AI tell me what data I need to look at and don't need to look at. I need to be able to then hold the AI accountable. And I need to be able to say, yes, that's great, or no, that's not good. And I don't have to just take it on face value and use what it's telling me. You have to use, because businesses are people in the end. So yes, you have to trust the data to a certain extent and you have to work on facts. Of course you do. But there's humans behind the facts. You've got to use a bit of your gut as well.
You know what? I actually tried to entrap you with this question for the sole reason, like you mentioned it, we traditionally used to have insights team, or in many companies, they were called BAs, right? The business analysts.
Yeah.
We weren't analyzing, which were just creating reports based on what their stakeholder wants to see. Right. So if the stakeholder says, get rid of this and then show me the report, this is what was happening. Now the AI might be much faster providing you the data, but somebody needs to request that data. So that human that's requested can still request the same thing from the AI. Okay, just show me those stats or whatever by just removing some bits here and there. So whilst I'm a huge advocate for automation, AI, tech, and whatever, I'm still saying the human element, like, guys, we can't get rid of ourselves, or we extinct. That's
yes.
it. Those are the options.
Exactly.
Either here or not. Right.
Exactly. We can't let AI take over completely. Otherwise, it stops being customer service. It stops, it takes all the emotion out of it.
So tell me, what have you seen in the BPO industry? Is it something that's currently starting to gain more momentum, the AI and the tech? It's kind of difficult because you're working with so many different customers, and also sometimes depending on the price and the cost, you might be deploying a solution for a certain customer that you are not necessarily able to deploy for a different one. So how are things looking on your end at the moment?
That's exactly the challenge. So certainly the stats, when you look at the market, AI and the use of not just AI, but technology more across BPOs globally is increasing. Still not everywhere. Still quite low adoption for AI, probably for all those exact same challenges you said, because the biggest challenge that we have at the moment is getting access to data in the right way to access for integration with technology. Because, say we've got 40 or 45 different clients, big and small, and that means all of a sudden you've got all those clients that you have to then, the same conversation that you would have with the technology provider yourself as a BPO, you then have to somehow link up and have the same conversation with those clients and get agreement about how you can share data. And then there's issues with protections and security and safety of data to make sure it isn't shared with any other third parties, etc. And so finding the right solution that integrates in the right way that can then give you value, not just for one campaign, but give you value across, all the campaigns is almost impossible, because you've got to remember that when companies use outsourcers, they don't necessarily use them because they don't have a contact center solution. They'll use it because they're either growing or they have a particular part of the contact center that be really well handled elsewhere. And so that means they've already got their own solution in-house. They're probably already using their own AI, they're using their own bots, they're using their own QA system, everything that we wish that we could control centrally. We simply can't. So the reality is we just have to get used to that. We just have to understand that we can't control everything, but then that doesn't matter. What we do have to do is still basically focus on what we can control. We have to make sure we're very selective. And when we are choosing technology, we don't choose it because it's really bright and shiny and the salesman was great and you love the tool, because it doesn't matter how much you love the tool. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. So yeah, it's a challenge, I guess. I'm not even sure if I answered the question, but adopting technology is really a challenge.
Okay, let's bring you back to the book, because this is how we started chatting on LinkedIn. Because I just found something that it sparks a lot of interest. It's a hot topic, but the title is "It's All People."
It's just people. A manager's toolkit. Yes.
Right. So give me some tips. Give me some tips talking about in the book.
Cool. So, yeah, I'll give you the full story. So yeah, turns out I'm a 40-something TikToker. So a few years ago, I created a TikTok channel at Leadership with Charlie. Please look it up if you want to watch a guy in his mid-40s talking on camera. And I did it because it was a challenge from my son, because that's what children do. And I started using it to support managers. So I started to do tips. So I did my, Charlie's top tips on management, and I'd talk about everything from recruitment right through to dismissal and performance management and everything else. And then after a few years, I thought, actually, I've got, 100 or so tips here that, in my view at least, are great tips that I wish someone could just put in one place. So I did. I started to think about these ideas. I started to write them down. And then, would you know it, a few years later, I've now created a book. It's just people, a manager's toolkit. So the premise of the book is that the first chapter is called Hiring, which is obviously about hiring. And then it follows the whole journey through, right through to the last chapter, which is called Firing, which is the nicest part, but I have to be real in the book and cover that off as well. And so the idea is that as a manager, you can read it from front to back if you wanted to, or you could just say, I want to turn to the page of the chapter called Team Building and look at team building, or I want to look at engagement. You look at engagement, or indeed, if you do find yourself, oh no, I might need to let this person go, you can turn to the chapter on firing and actually read about how to successfully and fairly let someone go.
I don't know what to say. First of all, those are topics that I really wish we can start talking a little bit more openly. So once again, I'm super impressed by you and that you put in the work to create and publish a book. Hiring and firing. Wow, those are one of the hot ones. Yeah. But by the end of the episode, I'm going to ask you again to just mention your TikTok and your book so everyone can find it. Cool. But the way that I see it, it's kind of tips and advice and a manual wrapped as a book, so everyone can basically decide, okay, what's a hot topic for me personally right now, so I can just open it on this and just use your advice on this topic.
That's exactly why I did it, because because I didn't do it just to stroke my own ego, but a lot of that is to make me feel good as well. But I did it because I couldn't find the same book anywhere. So I've got various management books and leadership books, and they all seem to go into too much depth. Or you get one management book and it tells you, the 5 steps to management. And you get another management book and it's the 3 steps of leadership. And another one is like the 7 steps, and they're all different models. So when I was a manager, I found it really hard to understand when you're in the moment and you've suddenly got to manage people or something happens. You're not going to remember, oh yeah, that was the 4th step of this book I read 2 years ago, not the 3rd step of the other book I read 2 years ago. So I was like, right, let's cut out all the crap. Let's just keep it simple. Keep it simple, stupid, obviously. KISS methodology from design. And let's just break it down to really simple chapters. So I don't really follow any management methodologies. Obviously, I hinted a few through it, but I try and get out buzzwords. I try and not make it look too complicated, because I want it to be a book that a manager can just pick up on the fly. They can just get home one day. They can decide, I want to read about how to onboard someone, because the second chapter's onboarding. And then the manager can just do that. And throughout the book, I've actually tried to keep the same feel. So I actually started making it too chatty. So when I started writing the book, I wrote it as if I was speaking. And then I got a really good friend called Mark from Gemini Training and Consultancy. And he's much better at English than I am. He's actually studied English, whereas I just got a GCSE in English. So he read it through and he was like, you probably need to make this a bit more businessy. And he actually taught me about correct grammar. So I went through it and made it more businessy, but then I made sure in each section I put my top tips. So you'll be reading it, it'll tell you a methodology or whatever I choose to write, and then it will say my top tip is, and it will hopefully give you a real example, just to keep it real. So it hopefully feels like this. If you were to ask me about onboarding, the way I speak now is hopefully how the book appears, is my point.
I love that. And you know what? I find you a fascinating guest and amazing one, because I keep on telling people in the industry that sky's your limit. And writing a book is something that probably none of us would actually believe it's possible. We somehow think about writing a book like, oh, you need to be just an author. Like, this is what you do for a living, or you are retired CEO of whatever company and you're just speaking about the brand. No. If you think about it, you can do it. And I find you such a great example that this is a passion of yours, and then you're trying to help and support by just putting all of your experience into tips and tricks for all of us here. So, thank you so much.
No, you're welcome. I've got to say though, just at the end on the point you made, is the reason I do this stuff, like TikTok and obviously haven't just done work stuff, is because there's a really powerful phrase that I heard a few years ago, which is the power of yet. So you basically, rather than say, I'm not an author, you simply add the word yet at the end. So I'm not an author yet. So for instance, I'm running an ultra marathon in October. I've never run an ultra marathon before, but I'm not an ultra marathon runner yet, but I will be. Wow. I wasn't a TikToker, but if you say I'm not a TikToker yet, it gives me opportunity. And unless someone tells you can't do it, why don't you just go and write a book? No one's stopping you.
Well, should you believe that? Because I had many people in my life telling me I can't do it. I couldn't open a consulting company. I would have failed within a month. I wouldn't have been a consultant for a external company because it's too much and I'm going to fail immediately. But hey, off, here I am. So I'm sorry about it. I might
You're smashing it. Yeah, you're doing really good.
Right. So I really like that you're bringing that positivity and that message about, you know what, just do it. Mm-hmm. Like, start doing it. If you're dreaming about it, there isn't a showstopper other than maybe time. But
everyone has the same amount of time. It's just how you choose to use it. So you can't use time as an excuse.
That's true. So thank you so much for this conversation. We are wrapping it up. Give me a final tip for everyone that is watching right now in whatever direction. What makes a great manager?
A great manager is someone that leads with courage. So one of the hardest things about being a manager is having the courage to step up can take charge, handle difficult conversations, handle conflicts within your team. But if you shy away from it, you're not going to do anyone any favors. So just be the manager and be the leader that your team wish they had. Be that person that can take control, that can lead them from the front, lead them through any issues, any challenges. And it all takes courage. So yeah, learn how to be courageous, or learn how to show courage.
Well, that's a great one, actually. Fantastic one. And thank you so much for joining me. Again, name of the book, where can people find it, and the TikTok.
So the book is called It's Just People, A Manager's Toolkit. If you Google it, if you Google It's Just People, Charlie Adams, it'll come up. It's on Amazon. So go on Amazon, you can find the book. If you've got Kindle Unlimited, you can even read the book for free. It's available on paperback, on hardback. So please go and take a look. You can find me on LinkedIn. If you search Charlie Adams, customer experience, I think I'm probably one of the few people that come up if you search that. And if you really want to watch me on TikTok, at Leadership with Charlie.
And you know what, guys, let's support one of our own. So if you want for some business content and something to help you be better in your job, just let's support one of our own. Let's go buy the book, go find the TikTok. And you know what, on that note, if you're looking for a BPO, where do people go?
Custom Connect. So yeah, Custom Connect, we've got offices throughout Europe, South Africa, South America. And of course, I'm the director of customer experience. So of course, it's an awesome place.
So if you go there, just say that you know of a Charlie.
Yeah.
To help.
Name drop me.
Yes, name drop him. Thank you so much, everyone. And we'll see you next Tuesday.
Cheers.
Thanks for joining us today. I'm your host, Irina Mateva, founder of WFM, where we believe that every business and its people are unique and deserve the right solution to their challenges. If you need support with workforce management, we're just a message away. Get in touch at irina@rightwfm.com or info@rightwfm.com. If you like the content and would like to support the show, please subscribe to WFM Unfiltered on your favorite podcast platform, leave a review, and follow me on LinkedIn. You can also show some love to our great sponsors. For more information about them, check out the episode notes. This is your place for real WFM, so to suggest guests or topics, get in touch at irina@rightwfm.com. See ya!